Destroy the old you and rebuild yourself alone. There are moments when you look in the mirror and see a familiar face that somehow feels strange, not because you have changed too much, but because you have stood still for too long. You are still that same person with the same old fears, the same old stories, the same old habits, repeating like a broken record. Sometimes you ask yourself, why am I still stuck here? Why do the same circles keep returning? Why have I not escaped the shadow of myself? And the answer is not because the world outside is too strong, but because you have not dared to break the old shell you are living in. There is a silent pain we rarely name, and that pain is stagnation. It is not loud, does not explode, it seeps into you daily, year by year. You wake up, go to work, talk, laugh, but inside is a sense of weariness. It feels like living in an old room with the walls peeling, the ceiling cracked, and the furniture covered in dust. But you do not notice it because you are too familiar with it. Until one day you sit down in silence and see the truth clearly. You have not walked far. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realizing this, you begin to see that true strength is not in changing the world, but in destroying the old version of yourself. But most of us do not dare. We want change, but we want safety. We want a new step, but we want to keep the old shoes. We want rebirth, but we do not want to walk through fire. The trap is that stagnation does not arrive in one night. It does not knock on the door. It does not shout, it comes from the smallest choices. You choose to stay in a job you hate because changing feels too risky. You decide to continue an empty relationship because you are afraid of loneliness. You choose to delay a plan because you think the timing is wrong. And then each choice weaves itself into a cage. No locks, no chains, only soft bars you built yourself. But the longer you stay, the stronger they become, and the more you believe there is no way out. Epictetus reminded us that it is not events that hurt people, but how they look at those events. So is stagnation a life sentence? No, it is only a mirror reflecting yourself. The problem is not the outside world. The problem is that you continue to live the same way, telling the same story, playing the same role. You are not stuck because there is no road. You are stuck because you will not break the old script. Imagine watching a movie you have already seen dozens of times. At first it feels familiar, safe, but by the 20th time, you no longer feel anything, only boredom. Yet you keep watching because you think there is nothing else out there. Many live exactly like that, a tape rewinding repeatedly, not because there is no new script, but because they refuse to step into it. That is when the truth appears. Change is not fixing a little, not taping over a crack, not repainting the old wall. Real change is tearing down the entire room, smashing the old foundation, and building from the ground up. It is not gentle, it is not smooth, it hurts, it is strange, it is lonely. But it is the only road out of your own shadow. Seneca once said, "Weakness is born from luxury, and hardship is the road to freedom." You do not need the world's approval. You do not need anyone's permission. You only need the courage to light the fire, let the old burn into ashes and shape something new from those ashes. A self no longer dragged down by fear, no longer bound by the need for recognition, no longer drowned out by the world's noise. This journey does not happen in one day. It is a long road with many stages. Each stage is a challenge, a step you must take to escape the old weariness. Abandoning the old path, learning to be silent, refusing to let comfort lull you, shutting out the noise, changing the voice inside your head, holding discipline, and finally keeping your promise to yourself. 7 stages, 7 doors, 7 trials. The question is not whether you want to change, but whether you dare to destroy the old, to build the new. No one can walk this road for you. This journey is only for you in silence, solitude, and determination. And if you are ready, step into the first stage where all old paths must be left behind. Stage 1. Abandon the old path. Everyone must eventually face a silent truth. For many years, we have not truly moved forward. We have only repeated the same familiar circles. On the surface, you appear to have changed. Your hair is shorter, your body looks different, and your job may have shifted. But deep inside, you remain the same person with old habits, reactions, and fears that were never resolved. Like a dirt road trampled flat, the more it is walked, the deeper the track becomes, and the easier it is to follow, the less it leads anywhere. And day after day you keep stepping onto that same road only because it is familiar, only because it does not demand the courage to take another direction. The old path exists in everything. How you react to criticism is always defensive instead of listening. It is in the habit of postponing what matters, telling yourself you will begin tomorrow, yet tomorrow never arrives. In the evenings, you plan to write, study, train, but choose the sofa, the familiar movie, or hours of meaningless scrolling on your phone. That old path is like an iron band tightening over time, wearing you down but never loosening because you lack the will to tear it off. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, "Do not waste time debating what a good man should be one, but to become someone else." You cannot keep walking the same old road, for no worn path ever leads to new ground. The real question is, do you dare to break it or shatter those familiar marks beneath your feet? Imagine you live in an old house. Each day, another crack appears in the wall, the roof leaks in a new spot, and the furniture breaks down. You patch this, fix that, clean a little, but the house is still the same old house, rotting from its foundation. If you genuinely want a new home, you cannot keep patching. You must accept the dust, the noise, the chaos of tearing it down and building from the ground up. Your transformation is the same. You cannot keep living on patches of your old self. You must dare to destroy them. Many deceive themselves thinking a few good habits are enough, but the danger is not in the big mistakes, but in the relentless repetition of the small ones. A missed workout, a broken promise to yourself, and a few more hours of lost sleep seem harmless, but together they build an entire life of delay. Seneca once wrote that no one collapses from a single great shock. Men repeatedly break down from minor wounds. To abandon the old path, you must have the courage to do what few will do, face the truth. Write down what you keep repeating and name the habits that keep you stuck. No sugarcoating, no excuses. Look straight. No change begins if you do not first face the truth about yourself. Epictetus once said, "No one becomes wise by denying their own weaknesses. But recognition alone is not enough, you must act." The first act is to refuse the old ways. If you are pulled into your phone every night, put it out of reach and replace it with a notebook to write in. If you promise to wake early every morning but always hit snooze, place the alarm far from the bed to force yourself to rise. If you know a relationship keeps dragging you into old patterns, cut it away no matter how it hurts. All transformation demands sacrifice. The first sacrifice is letting go of the paths that trapped you. When you reject the old path, there will be emptiness. Suddenly you do not know what to do in the evening because no movie fills the time. Suddenly you feel lost because the meaningless conversations are gone. That emptiness is not failure. It proves you are leaving the old road. It is like stepping onto a path no one has walked at first, full of weeds and stones, but it is the only way out of the familiar circle. And that very emptiness is the subsequent trial. Because when you dare to abandon the old path, the first thing you must learn is how to befriend the void. Be comfortable doing nothing and sit still and face yourself. Stage 2. Learn to be comfortable doing nothing. When you have abandoned the old path, you first encounter not the joy of freedom, but an empty space. That emptiness is so silent that it makes you uncomfortable. You no longer have the familiar habits to lean on or the easy noises to fill the time. Suddenly you must face yourself in stillness. That is where many give up because they cannot stand the feeling of doing nothing. Try a small experiment. Sit in a room with no phone, music or book, only you and your breath. After just 5 minutes, you already feel restless. After 10 minutes, you begin thinking about standing up. 20 minutes, your mind explodes with thoughts of all kinds, from daily worries to old memories. You realize you have never honestly sat still with yourself. And that is the problem. We have grown used to seeking comfort in motion, at work, in entertainment, and in noise. When there is nothing to do, we feel empty. But that emptiness is only a mirror reflecting what we have avoided for too long. The worries, fears, and insecurities we usually bury under tasks and distractions now appear. Epictetus once reminded us that, if you want to make progress, be willing to be thought foolish and be overlooked. Sitting still is the first lesson of transformation, which teaches you to face yourself with courage when there is nowhere else to hide. Some fear loneliness because they believe it is a sign of failure, but loneliness is only unfamiliarity with your presence. If you cannot be alone in silence, you will always need someone or something to fill the gap. And when you need too much, you become dependent. On the other hand, when you learn to be at ease in silence, you are truly free. Seneca once wrote that if a man feels lonely with himself, he is in the worst company possible. Look at everyday life. Many people turn on the TV at home not because they want to watch, but because they fear silence. Many clutch their phones before sleep, not because something urgent awaits, but because they fear facing their thoughts. Many accept invitations and attend meaningless gatherings, not because they enjoy them, but because they fear being left behind. This is to avoid one truth: they cannot stand alone. But emptiness is not the enemy, it is where you begin to be reborn. Just as empty soil allows seeds to sprout, your mind needs silence for new thoughts to take root. When you sit still, you initially feel discomfort, but slowly the pain fades and you begin to hear your authentic voice. Not the voice of society, not the voice of family, not the voice of others, but your own. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself each morning that today I will meet the ungrateful, selfish, and traitors, but I will not be disturbed by them because I know the nature of man. He found that preparation in silence before the world rushed in. You too need such silence. Before the world defines you, let yourself hear your own voice first. Practicing stillness is not easy, but you can begin with small steps. Turn off all devices for 10 minutes each morning and breathe. When driving or walking, try not to turn on music or podcasts, only notice your surroundings. When eating, put down the phone and focus on each bite. These small acts will teach you how to endure emptiness, and slowly you will find it is no longer frightening. Emptiness will become your companion. It will not make you weak, it will make you strong. It will train you to listen, to observe, to adjust. It will teach you not to rely on busyness or noise to feel you exist. And when you learn to be alone without feeling lonely, you have already taken a long step toward rebirth. But the journey does not end there. Once you have learned to be still in silence, you will see a new, subtler, more dangerous trial. That is false comfort, the sweet trap that always whispers, pulling you back to the old road. And to truly transform, you must be clear enough not to fall into that trap. Stage 3. Do not let comfort deceive you. After you have learned to sit with emptiness, the next challenge appears, and it is even more subtle. That challenge is comfort. Not true comfort, but the false kind that makes you believe you are fine while you are being lulled to sleep. It comes in the soft sofa, the familiar movie, the endless scrolling of your phone, and the meaningless conversations that kill time. All of these seem harmless, but repeated long enough, they become the sweet trap that keeps you circling the same road. Seneca once reminded us, weakness is born from luxury, and hardship is the path of training. That saying may sound harsh, but look honestly at reality. Do you remember any time you truly grew without difficulty? Have you ever become stronger through a night of watching movies or a few hours of scrolling online? Everything that made you deeper came from trials and pain. Yet people always choose the easier way because it demands less. False comfort is like an anesthetic. It does not heal it, only numbs the pain for a while. You are tired and you open your phone. You are bored and you reach for some fast food. You are lonely and you turn on the TV for background noise. But when the anesthetic wears off, the problems remain. In fact, they are heavier because you have wasted more time, more energy, more opportunity. Imagine you live in a house with a leaking roof. Place a bucket under the rain and tell yourself it is fine when rain falls. But year after year, the roof still leaks even worse. The bucket is not a solution, it is only temporary comfort. The real solution is to climb the roof, endure the wet, endure the cold, and repair it. But most of us choose the bucket. Marcus Aurelius once warned himself each morning, "Rise and do the work of a human being, not seek the comfort of an animal spoiled by ease." He spoke of not only leaving the bed, but choosing to live awake rather than letting comfort swallow the day. Look at the familiar examples. You promise to exercise, but when the time comes, the sofa feels better. You promise to write, but the movie feels more appealing as you sit down. You decide to learn a new skill, but social media drags you away. Comfort is always there within reach, ready and inviting. And each time you choose it, you give away a piece of your strength. But Stoicism does not call you to abandon all joy. It reminds you that if you want true freedom, you must choose meaningful hardship over meaningless comfort. Instead of avoiding pain, step into it willingly. Instead of the soft chair, put on the running shoes. Instead of scrolling without aim, pick up the pen and write a few lines. Instead of seeking temporary comfort, sow the seeds that create lasting strength. The question is not whether you must reject all ease, but whether you dare to refuse it when it blocks your progress. Real discipline begins when you say no to empty comfort, like turning off the TV to sit down and study, leaving the bed on a cold morning, and staying silent instead of joining a useless conversation. Epictetus once taught, "Do not hope that things will happen as you wish, hope they happen as they are." And the nature of false comfort is that it will always tempt you, taste sweet, but never take you anywhere. Only when you face and refuse it do you truly have a chance to move forward. You take a step closer to freedom when you have learned to resist false comfort. But another danger still waits greater because it does not come from within you but from the world outside. That danger is the noise of other people's opinions. And if you do not know how to shut it out, all your efforts can be dragged back to the beginning. Stage 4. Stop listening to too many opinions around you. There is a bitter truth: we love ourselves more than anything, yet we care more about the opinions of others than our own voice. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself of this in his journal and considered it one of the greatest wastes of life. You can spend years trying to build your life, yet a single criticism, a doubtful glance can shake you, make you question yourself, even lead you to give up. Think back to when you bought a pair of shoes or wore an outfit you liked. You stepped outside with confidence, felt good, felt different. But the moment someone casually said, "It does not really suit you," you instantly wavered. The joy you had just moments before vanished, replaced by discomfort, shame, and self-doubt. Why can one small comment change how you see yourself so much? Because you gave away the power to define your value to someone else. The world outside is always noisy. Everyone has opinions. You should live this way, you should not live that way. You must choose the safe path, you must follow the common standard. But if you let yourself drift with all that noise, you will never hear the authentic voice within. Stoicism reminds us that the only thing we can control is our own thoughts and actions. The opinions of others, praise or criticism, approval or rejection, lie outside our control. To cling to them is to hand over your chain for others to hold voluntarily. Imagine you are rowing a small boat. The sea is vast, and the winds blow from every direction. If you change course whenever you hear different advice, you will spin in circles forever, never reaching the shore. But if you know your direction, you can use the wind when it is favorable, or resist it when it is against you, but still move forward. Other people's opinions are like the wind. You cannot control them, but you can choose how they affect your course. In daily life, this noise is everywhere. Family wants you to be stable, friends wish you to fit in, and society wants you to follow the crowd. If you are not awake, you will spend your whole life trying to please while abandoning yourself. And the irony is, no matter what you do, you will never please everyone. So why live that way? Seneca once wrote that the one who tries to please everyone pleases no one, not himself. The wise person knows how to choose and hear what helps him improve, but never allows it to replace his own will. You may take advice, but you cannot live for others. You may listen, but you cannot let them steer your life. To stop listening to too many opinions, you need an essential step. Detach yourself from the hunger for approval. From childhood, we were taught to seek good marks in the eyes of teachers, strengths in the eyes of friends, and achievements in the eyes of society. Over time, we became addicted to approval. Without it, we feel worthless. But Stoicism teaches a different truth. Your worth does not come from how others see you, but from how you keep your principles and whether you live with virtue. This challenge is not easy, because staying silent before the opinions of others can make you seem foolish, misunderstood, or even mocked. But Epictetus once reminded us that if we want to make progress, we should be willing to be thought ridiculous. Only when outside opinions no longer control you are you truly free. Try a small example. Next time someone criticizes what you do, instead of reacting, smile and remain silent. You do not need to argue, you do not need to prove yourself. Ask if this helps me move forward. If yes, keep it. If not, let it go. As simple as that. The noise outside fades in silence while you still keep your course. You will feel lighter when you learn to stop listening to too many opinions around you. You will no longer chase recognition, no longer be suffocated by the gaze of others. But then you will realize there is a voice stronger than all of them, and it comes from inside you. That is the voice you whisper to yourself every day. If that voice is wrong, it can destroy you from the inside out. That is why the next stage of the journey is changing how you speak to yourself. Stage 5. Change the way you speak to yourself. Have you noticed that the one who talks to you the most each day is not your friends, co-workers, or even your family, but the voice inside your head? It whispers when you wake up, comments on every action, condemns when you make mistakes, and mocks when you fail. The problem is that most of us have never been fully aware of that voice. We let it whisper freely, and it becomes truth in our eyes over time. Please think of the time you dropped a glass and muttered, "I am so clumsy." That statement sounds harmless, but when repeated enough times, it becomes an invisible label you place on yourself. From one action, it becomes an identity. You are not just someone who dropped a glass, you turn yourself into a clumsy person. In the same way, when you procrastinate, you tell yourself you are lazy. When you fail, you tell yourself you are useless. These statements may seem like passing thoughts, but they carve deeper each day, building the frame for your entire life. Epictetus once reminded us that people are not disturbed by events, but by how they view them. The event is the broken glass, the interpretation is, "I am clumsy." And it is that choice of interpretation that decides who you are. If you want to be reborn, you must reprogram the voice in your head and change how you speak to yourself. Observe what you tell yourself in a day. When you wake up late, you say you are worthless. When you hesitate to speak up, you say you will never be good enough. When you see others succeed, you whisper to yourself, "I will never reach that." These words do not just appear in a moment. They cling to you like background music, and over time you live exactly as they say. If you want to change, begin with the smallest sentences. Instead of saying, "I cannot," say, "I am learning so I can." Instead of saying, "I failed," say, "I just gained another lesson." Instead of saying, "I am lazy," say, "I am training to be more patient." This change may sound small, but it is the seed of a new self. When you change how you speak to yourself, you change the world you live in. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself each day, "Your soul takes the color of your thoughts." If you keep words of self-criticism, your soul will be dyed with insecurity. If you keep words of self-encouragement, your soul will shine with strength. That is why you must choose carefully every sentence you say to yourself. In daily life, this can be trained. When you make a mistake, instead of drowning in self-blame, write down 3 things you could do differently next time. When you feel fear, instead of calling yourself a coward, whisper, "I can try one more small step." When you feel exhausted, instead of complaining, tell yourself, "I am training endurance." These small phrases are like bricks. Over time, they build a new fortress for your mind. But changing the voice in your head is not just about saying different words. It is also about action. That voice becomes hollow if you tell yourself you are strong but keep running from every challenge. On the other hand, when you complete one small task and remind yourself, "I kept my word," that voice slowly turns into belief. The habit of words and the habit of action must go together, or you are only deceiving yourself. You will feel a subtle shift when you build a positive voice. You will doubt yourself less, compare less, and you will no longer be crushed with each failure, but see it as a chance to renew. That voice becomes an ally instead of an enemy, and that is the foundation of a new self. Yet the voice in your head is still only one part. It must be reinforced with steady daily actions, regardless of your feelings. Because if you still give up easily whenever you lose interest, even the most positive voice is just a thin coat of paint. That is why the next stage in the journey of rebirth is to learn how to keep your habits even when you do not feel like it. Stage 6. Keep your habits even when you have no motivation. There is a truth few dare to admit. Most of us do not fail because we lack ability, but because we wait for inspiration before we begin. We promise to train when we feel excited, study when we feel motivated, and change when our mood is high. But inspiration always arrives late in real life, while reasons to delay arrive early. And so day after day passes and all our plans remain stuck in our minds, never becoming reality. Habits do not care about your emotions. Habits are built by repetition, not by excitement. Think about brushing your teeth. You do not need inspiration to pick up a toothbrush each morning. You do it day after day. If you could treat exercise, study writing, or any critical work the same way you treat brushing your teeth, your life would change. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Do not waste another moment in hesitation. Rise and do what is fitting for a human being." That reminder still holds its weight. The modern world fills our heads with the idea of motivation, but the Stoics understood that motivation is fleeting, while discipline is the bridge that carries you through all seasons. Consider a simple example. One man decides to run to improve his health. On the first day, full of inspiration, he runs 5 kilometers. On the second day, busy, he skips. On the third day, it rains, he stays home. By the end of the week, all his determination had vanished. In contrast, another man sets a small goal, just 10 minutes of running each morning, no matter the weather or his mood. After a month, his body and his will are transformed, not because he did more, but because he did it more consistently. Habits are like pathways in the brain. Each time you repeat an action, you press another footprint. When you persist without motivation, that path grows clearer until you walk it, almost without thinking one day. This is the true power of habit. It turns discipline into reflex. In daily life, start with small, clear, non-negotiable actions. If you want to write, commit to 1 page a day. Commit to 10 minutes of movement if you're going to strengthen your body. If you want to read, commit to 5 pages before bed. These small acts do not require inspiration, they require decision, and they become the bricks that build the foundation of your new self. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have too little time, but that we waste too much." Every time you wait for inspiration, you waste another chance to build yourself. Instead, turn each day into a small commitment. Please do not ask if I am motivated today. Ask, did I keep my word to myself today? Keeping habits, even when you have no motivation, is a silent promise that does not need witnesses. It brings no immediate applause, but it changes you at the roots. One day, you will look back and see that you have gone much farther, simply because you endured through the days that seemed meaningless. And when you have learned to sustain your habits regardless of emotion, you will discover something greater. Real change does not only come from what you do, but from who you become. That is when you step into the next stage of rebuilding identity, where you rewrite the entire story of yourself. Stage 7. Keep the promises you make to yourself. There comes a moment when you realize that the most important promise is not the one you give to others, but the one you keep with yourself. People may forgive you when you break your word with them, but you will never fully forgive yourself when you break your word with your own soul. Each time you say, "Tomorrow I will begin," and then you do not, you cut a small wound into your self-trust. And those cuts, repeatedly, drain the faith inside you until it bleeds dry and can no longer stand. Keeping promises to yourself is not easy, because no one is there to supervise you. There is no audience, no one scoring you, no reminders. It is just you, the silent room, and the decision of whether you will take the next step. And precisely because no eyes are watching from the outside, its value becomes priceless. It is the most accurate measure of discipline. Remember the last time you swore you would wake early, but when the alarm rang, you silenced it and turned away. At that moment, You did not just choose to sleep more, you decided to break a promise with yourself. That price may seem small, but it builds into an invisible habit, and one day you realize you have grown used to abandoning yourself. On the other hand, when you keep your word, even with something as small as drinking a glass of water in the morning, doing a few minutes of exercise, or writing a few lines in a journal, you are rebuilding trust within yourself. Each time you follow through, you carve a stronger mark in your mind that you are someone you can rely on. And when that trust is deep enough, it becomes the foundation for every significant change. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us to live as if every act were engraved upon our souls. This means, do not dismiss small acts. A small promise kept is more potent than a grand plan abandoned. These silent promises are what shape a steadfast person. In daily life, begin with a simple promise. Commit to doing one small thing each day and never break it. It may be reading one page of a book, walking 10 minutes, or writing down one thing you are grateful for. When you prove to yourself that you can keep a small promise, you open the path to keeping larger ones. The Stoics taught that the highest virtue is to live according to reason and one's principles. And keeping promises to yourself is how you train that virtue. Because if you cannot trust yourself, you will always depend on the approval of others. But when you know you will do what you said you would, you become free. Free from judgment, free from hesitation, free from self-doubt. Keeping promises with yourself does not mean you will never stumble. There will be days you are weak, times when you give up. But the difference lies in the return, in starting again, in not allowing one failure to harden into a habit. That is resilience. And when you have learned to stand firm on small promises, you will understand that the journey of destroying the old self and rebuilding the new never ends in a single night. It is carved daily, act by act, commitment by commitment, held steady even when no one is watching. As you finish this stage, ask yourself, when was the last time you fully kept a promise to yourself? And the next time you stand before a choice, will you let yourself down again, or will you have the courage to hold on to your trust? When you look back at the 7 stages you have walked through, you will see that they are not scattered ideas but a continuous journey. Each stage is like a brick stacked one upon another to build an inner fortress. Abandoning the old path is the first step to escape the familiar ground. Learning to be comfortable doing nothing helps you rediscover the silence your mind needs. Not letting comfort deceive you reminds you that every convenience carries a hidden price. Stopping the noise of too many outside opinions allows you to return and hear your inner voice. Changing how you speak to yourself gives you a new map. Keeping habits, even without motivation, makes you a person ruled by discipline rather than emotion. And finally, keeping promises to yourself is the thread that ties the entire journey together, ensuring that all the previous stages are not just theory, but a real-life rebuild. Let me make this clear from the perspective of someone who has walked before. Rebirth is not an event, it is a process. It does not arrive on a bright morning nor appear just because you listen to an inspiring message. It comes when you patiently repeat the small steps, keep the silent promises, and accept that pain and solitude are part of change. For those still listening, the solution is not to memorize all 7 stages like a formula, but to choose one point, begin there, and let it spread. Perhaps today you turn off your phone earlier and spend 10 minutes sitting in silence. You could write down one small promise tomorrow and keep it at all costs. You should stop blaming yourself and replace it with a new sentence that you still have a chance to change. See this journey as a fire. Each stage you complete is another log placed on the flames, and the fire grows brighter. Do not expect it to blaze in a single minute. Let it burn steadily, patiently, and you will see that its warmth and light are enough to guide you through the dark. You do not need to prove anything to the world. You only need to prove that you dare to abandon the old self and have the patience to build the new one. And when you do that, you are not just reborn, you become living proof of the power of discipline and Stoic wisdom. The final question for you is not whether you can change, but whether you dare to begin today. Because in every moment, you stand at a crossroads carrying two clear choices. Continue repeating the old until it hardens into a prison, or burn it down and step into a new chapter. The decision is yours, and so is the future. If these words reach you, share what you are ready to let go of to rebuild yourself. Please write it down in the comments, because when you say it out loud, you have already laid the first brick of change. And if you find this journey meaningful, send it to a friend who also needs rebirth. Do not forget to subscribe to Sovereign Stoic to continue walking together through the stages ahead. This journey is not only mine but ours, the journey of those who dare to walk in silence, until one day the world is forced to listen to the power of change.